Okay, so we're just getting some news out of GameStop here. It was easier to do this as a live feed rather than setting up everything to record it. So, obviously, if anyone's watching this later on, just keep in mind some of the numbers I'm going to talk about are happening in real time. So, GameStop, symbol GME, very popular stock for a long time now, as we've watched this thing go from being shorted pretty much out of its own life to seeing the price go way back up again. So today, what I want to just talk about is the most recent earnings report here. This is not going to be super in-depth. I want to speak only to highlights, talk about where the current stock price is and any other highlights that were called out during the call. So let me just get myself set up here. So first and foremost, real quick, today is March 17th, 2021. I don't own GameStop stock or shares. It's not in my portfolio. So I'm just coming at this from the news because I'm very interested to see what they're doing and what they're working on. So long and short of it is when GameStop closed today, it was at 87.70, which was up just under 1 percentage point or 84 cents for the day. Since earnings have been released, it is now down $7.85 in after hours to 79.85. That's a percentage of about 8.95% down right now. Now, it did actually dip a little bit lower than that. The trend looks like it's going that direction, but I do want to call out that is the current situation. So just for those who are interested in hearing that, that's what's going on right now in the after-hours trading. So essentially, here's the deal. From the IR perspective, their biggest piece of news that they came out with, at least in my opinion, was that they're intending to launch an NFT Marketplace by the close of Q2 2022 or financial year 2022 for them. So I'm just going to read this real quick, what I have here, right? So, and again, I want to call this out. I have no affiliation with GME. I don't work for them. I don't know them. I'm reading and reacting to what I'm seeing here from their own information that they've released. So I'm going to first cover the fourth quarter overview. I'm going to do pretty quick. I'm going to cover the full year overview. And then I want to talk about the NFT piece because I think that's really interesting to sort of understand what exactly that means, what we might see from that. And what I, of course, really want to urge everybody is you should never, ever, ever, ever make buying decisions or selling decisions on incomplete data or potential future use data. The reason I'm calling that out is I think that can get confusing sometimes when you hear these things. So I just want to put that out there, that just because they say they're going to do something or earnings looked a certain way or they missed earnings or made earnings, whatever the case is, make sure you do your full research to understand the impact it's going to have. So let's not waste any time. I'm going to jump right in. So fourth quarter overview, they generated net sales of $2.254 billion for the quarter, which is up from the $2.122 billion in the fourth quarter of 2020 and $2.194 billion in the fourth quarter of 2019. So essentially what we're seeing here is that they're up from last year, but not from 2020. They established a new and expanded brand relationships. This included with PC gaming companies such as Alienware, Corsair, and Lenovo. And this contributed to sales growth in the quarter. A really interesting play here because as we look at GME as a company, this is one of those things I sort of had on my checkbox of like, look, whether this is something you see just as a meme stock or just as an ape stock, or you're really invested in seeing GameStop stock going up, I think one of the key things they had to prove was that they could really expand the partnerships with the brands. That was, at least for me, a pretty big deal that I wanted to hear. Now, their rewards members, which is part of the Power Ups Rewards Pro, they saw that grow by 32% on a year-over-year basis, which takes the total membership to approximately 5.8 million members. Again, I mean, these are good metrics. This doesn't sound like a company that's going bankrupt anytime soon or is in deep trouble here. So just want to call that out. They also entered into a partnership with Immutable X, and the intention here is that it's going to help them with the development of what will be GameStop's exclusive NFT marketplace. And the idea behind this is it's also going to provide the company with about 150 million in what they're calling IMX tokens upon achievement of certain milestones. So nuts and bolts here, I think GameStop, and we've all known this for a little while now, they're very focused on that NFT space, the growth that lives within there. I would be cautious with the amount of competition that's out there and also cautious with the perspective of how much trading, selling, and profit we can see on these NFTs. Now, that said, like most marketplaces, being the one in the middle, sort of taking the fees and the differentials between them, usually not a bad business model. But again, here, this is all future looking. This is not done today. This is based on certain things happening within certain milestones. Just be aware of that. It's exciting to talk about an NFT marketplace. It is not indicative of the fact that it is actually built or built anytime near today, right? So keep that in mind. Now, more stuff coming out of fourth quarter. They launched a redesigned app. Now, this app includes a newer user interface, which they are calling enhanced user interface. I don't have any perspective on that. They're also seeing a better scalability or an improvement in scalability for larger product catalogs, as well as additional functionality to support exclusive offers and promotions. So I just want to talk about this for a second, because this again is directionally what I think we've been wanting to hear from GameStop, is as they've been able to get back into the marketplace and start building the brand up again and start really getting back here. We're seeing new projects. We're seeing growth of rewards members. We're seeing expansions of sales. But these things, this ability to go into an app, that experience of working with GameStop, this redesigned focus on customer loyalty, getting customers on board, getting customers into what you're doing, I think is pretty cool. For sure, it doesn't speak to whether the stock is going to go up or not. But as far as the company goes, which is the way I approach things, if you tell me that they have an app that's easier to use, scales for way more types of things within it that I can shop or buy or get access to, as well as to be able to get special promotions or offers tied into that app, these are good things. I have no negatives to say here at all. The final point that I'm going to speak to on the fourth quarter piece is potentially a very big or interesting, or potentially a flash in the pan. We're going to have to wait and see, but I do want to call it out that they basically said, look, they've hired dozens of new folks with experience in areas covering blockchain, gaming, e-commerce and tech, product refurbishment, operations. It's interesting because, they hired dozens. I mean, I don't know what dozens means. Does that mean 24 or does that mean 72, right? Probably erring on the smaller end, but that's okay. And if you listen to these titles, right? Blockchain gaming, e-commerce and tech, product refurbishment and operations. What I'm hearing is we're bringing in people who can help them to do a bit of a turnaround here, right? Continue that focus on what's new, what's changing, new ways to deliver things, potentially new items coming out, like blockchain gaming, a very interesting idea. Let's see how they execute on it. But the e-commerce and technology perspective is particularly interesting because things like B2C commerce online, the ability to do self-serve in an easier way, the ability to receive everything via an app or over the phone or online, that sort of gives them the ability to look at margins and scale potentially. That's my key take here, right? So let's shift gears to look at the full year overview, because again, that was just the Q4 overview. So we had a lot of cool things in there, etc. I'm throwing a big what's up to my friend Debt Free Dad Marcus over there. I don't think anyone goes in the store, which is why it's so important that they have these apps being rebuilt, refurbished, easier to use, more stuff on them, more things you can do with it. So just something to keep in mind there as well. Now let's jump into the full year overview. Generated net sales of $6.011 billion for the full year, compared to $5.090 billion for fiscal year 2020. Well, they're up about $1 billion in net sales. I mean, that's pretty good. If we're looking at it from a year-over-year perspective, unless I'm not seeing something in here that they didn't release, going from just a little bit over $5 billion to a little bit over $6 billion, that's a 20% increase year over year on net sales. People are paying attention again. People are spending with GameStop. Hard to really sort of crap on that. You know what I mean? What's up, Drew? Hope you're doing well, man, too. The more I read these results, I just want to call this out. I'll finish reading in a second. But Drew, to your point here, full transparency again, guys, I am not in GameStop. It's not something I've had my eyes on. I can only watch so many things at a time and have conviction in so many spaces, but zero buying recommendations here, of course. But I don't know. I mean, these are pretty good numbers. And if I say this all the time, if they can execute on what they're talking about, there is potential for GameStop to do some pretty cool things here and really continue to grow. And these are pretty bullish numbers. Now, granted, I know the stock's getting absolutely hammered, and I'll check again in a minute here. It's getting hammered after hours because clearly there's always analysts who have different expectations or different things they need to see. That's just par for the course of this business we're all in, but certainly something to pay attention to. Now, additionally, for the full year overview, we also saw an expansion of the product catalog. So essentially what this means in layman's terms is they're just adding more stuff that they can sell essentially from a product perspective. And what they're looking at particularly is a broader set of, a broader set of consumer electronics, more PC gaming equipment, and additionally more refurbished hardware. You know how I read something like this? Really simple. we're selling more stuff, both new and used. I don't think there's any way to fancy that up beyond saying that we're trying to sell more things, and more of that is sort of your traditional hardware type of stuff as well. So I just want to call that out too. That again, it's speaking to the point of like we're really trying to do better and sell more. Now, additionally, here's what we're looking at too. This is the part that if you're a true investor and you're looking at the company and you're trying to understand future growth, there's certain operational things that have to happen. Having more things to sell, who cares, right? If nobody buys them, it doesn't really matter. If you can't deliver them, it doesn't really matter. So one of the callouts that they had made as part of this was that there was a significant and what they're calling long-term investments in the company's fulfillment network, systems, and teams. So again, this speaks to that operational perspective of what GameStop is trying to build here, that they're looking at this from a grounds up perspective. And that's typically what we do in terms of fulfillment networks, systems, and teams, right? We want to make sure that when someone does order product XYZ, not only can we get it out to them, we also have a system in place to make sure we're managing that, people are watching it, it's being delivered, etc. I know this seems really obvious, but keep in mind, before this thing went on such a tear, everyone thought these guys were out of business. So the fact that they're reestablishing these things certainly is at a minimum good news, if nothing else. Now, additionally, they have new offices in Seattle, Washington, as well as Boston, Massachusetts. And these are going to be these are done on purpose, right? So I'm in Massachusetts, grew up right near Boston. If you are running a modern technology company, which is what GameStop really is, yeah, they're in gaming and entertainment, but it's technology at the end of the day. What they're trying to do is put themselves in a position where they're going to have hubs where there's access to talent, there's going to be access to hiring, there's going to be access to what's happening and what's new. If you do not work in technology like I do, let me be absolutely crystal clear here. Getting tech talent that is strong and deep is so difficult. It's not even a question of pay. It's a question of the amount of people who can fulfill the needs in getting them into a location where they're willing to live and can afford to live as well, because people are very mobile and very remote. So I'm telling you firsthand, trying to hire is absolutely extremely tough. Trying to find people who can do specifics like blockchain gaming, all these kind of cool things, that's going to be, I was just thinking about this morning, actually. Forget about trying to find a full stack developer. Forget about finding someone who's in data science. Imagine trying to find someone who specializes not only in gaming, but also in blockchain. That's a pretty specific ask. And if you're out there and you're in school and you're watching this, maybe it's something to consider that that's something coming down the pipeline as well to be really strong on rather. Now, two more specific things I want to call out that we learned from the earnings today, right? They've raised more than $1.67 billion in capital, and they've also eliminated all of their long-term debt from a company perspective, with the exclusion of $44.6 million in low-interest unsecured term loans. That's part of a French government's response to COVID-19. I don't even want to dig into that because I don't know what the heck that means, and I'm going to try to figure it out, but I don't know where I'm going to find it just yet. I'm sure there's a ton of information out there, but I want to repeat that again. GameStop, I keep saying GameStop, right? GameStop was able to go out and raise a little bit more than $1.67 billion in capital. They took that capital, they used it to pay off their long-term debt. That's awesome. That's from a company perspective. I'm not talking about the stock, I'm not talking about going up or down here. From a company perspective, the ability to grow and build and take care of these projects, getting that debt off their books was huge. We know that all they have left is this $44.6 million in low-interest unsecured loans. Of course, again, tied to the French government's response. I'm assuming there's probably something similar. It's like PPP. If you know, or you could look it up right now, that'd be awesome and throw in the comments. I'd appreciate it. If not, no worries. And then finally, let's just talk about sort of how they ended the year. So they ended the fiscal year with $1.271 billion in cash and cash equivalents and $915 million in inventory. Now, this is in comparison to what was originally the end of 2020, $635 million in cash and $602.5 million in inventory. So that's almost that is actually exactly just about double from a cash and cash equivalent perspective, and about 150% more in inventory. So they've seen increased investments in inventory that reflects the company's focus, this is their words, on meeting heightened demand and mitigating supply chain headwinds. So let's talk about that for a second, because I think it's a really important call out. I'm going to give you a true story. So I drive a truck, and there's a problem with my catalytic converter. I've now been waiting 3 months to get one. I am going crazy here because no one can even tell me when it's going to come in. And that's because no one had really planned on what they were going to need, what the parts were going to be. Hearing the GameStop has jumped up the inventory by 150% to make sure that they can act on those supply chain needs, act and execute on what's being ordered. This is how you build brand loyalty. This is how you get people to come back again and again and again, because they're getting what they order. They're happy to get it. It's excellent, right? So those are big deals that surely no one's going to talk about. I recognize that because right now everyone's going to talk about the prices going down and all the negatives that are associated with it. But that said, this is part of building up the company again. It doesn't mean that ultimately, long term, it's going to work out. It may not work out, right? I mean, so that's just the way it is. However, the surprising part to me is that even with sort of a lot of this good news here, we're still seeing a pretty big loss, right? So as I'm sort of looking into what's happening in the market today and what analysts have disagreed, as an example, what we're seeing is that there was a surprise Q4 loss, and that obviously is going to hurt the stock right now. I'm a big fan, honestly, and this sometimes is probably the reason why I'm not a professional analyst, frankly. I know that we love to look at stocks and companies and how they're doing quarter over quarter on a quarterly basis. Everything is about the quarter. Everything is about growing nonstop and constantly and always having good things happen. Listen, if you're trying to turn a company around and you're hiring, you're paying off debt, your sales are growing, your inventory is growing, your cash and equivalents are growing, I get it. There's going to be ups and downs in the stock for sure, but those are at least really good signs of a company that's trying to do the right things. Stocks go up and down. We need companies to invest in themselves, invest in their customers and their technology, invest in their operations and infrastructure. That's what I'm hearing, as well as investing in what they're seeing as the future, blockchain gaming, NFTs, etc. Really important things to be aware of. And Drew, of course, as you know, I talk about Palantir a lot. You got to look at tomorrow, right? That's the key with innovative companies. Growth companies get smashed all the time when they stop doing the things that cause them to grow. But when you continue to take your licks and keep finding ways to pivot and move forward and innovate, that's what separates a good company from a bad company. I am not an expert on GME. That's why I actually do this, because I don't spend my day studying it. I just look at the results, interpret them in my format of how I understand them, and then move forward, forward from there. What I do want to call out here is I'm actually checking this right now to see exactly where they lost. So part of the reason they're getting hammered after hours is they did see a loss that they weren't expecting, okay? Now, it is what it is, right? So here's the bottom line. GameStop, as part of this earnings release, did in fact call out that it lost $147.5 million, which is equivalent to about $1.94 per share in the fourth quarter. They did have earnings of $80.3 or $1.23 a share in the year previous period. So look, there is an obvious situation where they're losing money. For me, I worry less about that and more about the infrastructure investments and the operational investments. But I get it. Analysts have to have these numbers. They have to make these calls. I get that. And again, I do want to just call it out real quick. Like, revenue did rise up to about $2.25 billion for the quarter, which is up as well. So, I can't look at a company like a GameStop that's trying to reinvent itself and come into the market in a new way, and then be overly upset by missing certain numbers or not hitting things the right way or the way that we're expecting them to hit it. So I'm just going to call that out, like, full stop. Yes, they did have a loss in Q4. Yes, that stinks. Yes, that wasn't expected. I try to weigh these things out with, did they do the right things? Well, they paid off a ton of debt. I mean, they could have done other things with that capital, surely, but they're also investing in the business anyways. So for me, that's what I take from it. That's my positive spin on it as well. What I'll say is this. Anyone who happens to watch this after me going live right now, I'd appreciate, throw something in the comments below as far as, are you invested? Are you staying in? Are you bothered by the loss? Drew, if you're still in the live chat, or Marcus, I'd be curious what you guys think. Are you concerned with them having a Q4 loss, or are you more focused on sort of the growth and the innovation? I don't know. For me, it's sort of like, I need to see good things happening. If you can manage your losses and come back from that, then that's gonna be what's more important to me. So that's my take on it. That's my sense on it. That's my quick reaction for what I'm seeing. I'm not sure if they're going to release a full-fledged IR presentation. If they do, I will rip into that thing and take a look at it and see what I see in there. I just want to call this out that an additional point, and then I'm going to call it a day here because I gotta get rolling. But excuse me, my allergies are also terrible today, so apologies for the coughing. It's so easy to just let things happen. Okay, it would have been very easy for GameStop to have been shorted completely out of business. That's true. With Jay, I don't mind. I mean, that's why I got to wrap it up here. I'm a 6'3", 270-pound Irish guy. I got to get out and get busy here. I think at the end of the day, for me, it's this, right? When I make decisions on where I invest my money, I need to see the right trends, the right things happening, the right investments in the business. And I'm not saying I'm going to have a position here yet. I don't currently intend on having one. But at a minimum, I want to at least cover what I'm seeing here in a stock with a lot of attention around it. And where I think sometimes people get very lost in the immediacy of what they're reading, what they're seeing, and what they're understanding about the release pieces. I think how you understand the math behind it and the drivers of the business is very indicative of how well that business is going to do and grow. And I think that we're still learning on GameStop about their stock. So with that, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. I got to go rock and roll. I've got a big corned beef cooking in the kitchen, so I got to start there. And otherwise, thanks so much for watching. By the way, I just want to call this out. I am more than happy to go into details on any stock, no matter how complex or how in-depth it is, as well as product lines. Working in both finance and technology, I have the distinct pleasure of spending a lot of time ripping through operations, infrastructure, architecture, but also applying it back from a financial perspective as well. So with that, happy St. Paddy's Day. Good to see everybody. Look forward to seeing you again. Thanks all for watching. Take it easy out there.